This is Gateway City Sports.
It's a trap!
Oh, I'm sorry. Did I break your concentration?
This is the Team of Rivals podcast.
Everything you want to hear from the big sports to the big screen.
He's all by himself, fires into the end zone. Caught! Touchdown! No!
Vaughn into the windup in his first offering. Just a bit outside. He tried the corner and missed.
Doesn't like you. I don't like you either.
Time winding down. Michael for three. Yes! She is gone! I don't believe what I just saw.
Go crazy, folks! Go crazy! You believe in miracles? Yes!
You may fire when ready.
What?
Good evening, Cubs and Cardinals fans. It's Sunday, August 1st, and this is the Team of Rivals podcast, proud members of the Gateway City Sports Network, where you can find great podcast and blog content. What else are we going to talk about? I mean, we thought about doing a show on Thursday night, but we would have missed out on all the fun. So here we are. It's Sunday night. It's our big trade deadline recap. We get to talk about every single team in Major League Baseball making a trade for the trade deadline. Amazing. Just a historic day. I'm one to say it. Best trade deadline ever. And yes, my team completely dismantled itself. Still, that was the most exciting trade deadline I've ever experienced. But we'll get into it in just a second. Remember, you can follow us online at teamrivalspodcast.com. And we're also on Instagram and Facebook at Team Rivals Podcast. And we're on Twitter at Team Rivals Pod. And for those of you who are watching this afterwards, when I do that cool little graphic overlay on the audio, on YouTube, hit like and subscribe, and be sure to ring that bell on YouTube so that you receive notifications anytime we post new content. Joining me for tonight's show, the birthday boy, former state wrestling champion, 135 pounds, 1998-1999 season, permanent occasional guest host, Elliot Dewey, and number 48 in the 2000 edition of the Top Cards on Twitter, Ron Nuttall. Gentlemen, I mean, right? Best trade deadline ever.
I feel like we said this like 2 years ago, Pete, where I swear to God, if we go back and listen to the trade deadline 2019, I feel like maybe it's I don't remember, but it's deja vu, because I feel like I've heard you say this before, like best trade deadline ever. So we have to go back in the archives and look at this, because I swear you've said this before.
You're probably not wrong, but that was 2 years ago, and this was the best trade deadline ever. Everybody was involved. There were names going everywhere. There were wrong reports popping up. There were national media guys screaming, don't follow this guy. I did not say that. It was awesome. I had so much fun.
I love your hiccup there in the beginning. You probably thought nobody heard it, but you hit a speed bump just getting ready to say Sunday, because you're so used to it being Thursday. I caught it. Elliot, did you catch it? Oh, it was intentional. Bullshit.
Intentional.
Elliot, I don't believe him.
Never believe him.
I don't. But all right, yeah, it was what a bizarro world we live in, looking at players in uniforms that you never thought possible. Like, it's the last player in the world you'd ever think you would see in any given uniform, and all of a sudden you look up and you're like, shit, that looks weird. But guys, it's like that league-wide almost. It's not just our teams. And I know we can get in our silo, we can get in our little echo chamber and look at this and go, oh, that's weird for us. But league-wide, every baseball fan who pays attention to anything outside of their market or anything outside of their region is looking around going, what in the hell just happened?
You wouldn't believe how many questions I got this weekend. I was in Atlanta for my niece's graduation. You wouldn't believe how many questions I got. What the hell just happened? Because, people know that I do this podcast. And so it actually was loads of fun getting to talk about everything that had just transpired. Elliot, what was the most depressing trade for you? Like, which was the one that made you want to cry?
After seeing the video of Bryant finding out, that hit pretty hard. But I feel like Rizzo's was the most. Just because of how long he had been with the team. Everybody has always called, put a C on that guy's damn chest. He was kind of the heart and soul of the Cubs since the day he tried to fight the entire Reds bench. And now he's in New York and he's just another big name. It's just, yeah, I think that one. And then, a little bit of Bryant, but I think it's more Rizzo was the hard one. I think we expected him to still be there.
Yeah.
I felt like, we felt like he was the least likely one to go. And it was just kind of a shocker that they traded him to the Yankees.
Elliot, I know, Pete, you weren't asking me, but I've got.
No, I was going to ask you next.
Out of all the players, and I agree. Listening to you guys, I put a lot of stock into what you say. I've talked to John Pierman over in the Cubs Cards Cast. Those guys do something very similar to us, except they do it more organized and more baseball focused, and they don't allow one of the co-hosts to send them off the rails as much as I do. All of them were kind of speaking to the same sentiment, that all believe that Rizzo would be one of the guys that I think for and there's value to nostalgia and sentiment. Look, it's rare that you ever look around any sport, anything, and see what were the top jersey sales for the Cubs over the last 5 or 6 years. It's the 4 players that are no longer there, right? Oh, maybe Contreras or somebody else. You guys, I might be wrong about this, guys, but there were no 3 bigger names than Rizzo, Baez, and Bryant.
No.
Nope.
Right? And go ahead and throw Schwarber in there too. For a while, everybody thought he was going to be, the next Babe Ruth, or as your smart ass would put it, in The Last Jedi. And just to look up and see a team that was just so tied to certain names you associated with that club to no longer be there, it is wild, man. I don't think I've ever seen anything like this in sports. And Rizzo, to me, guys, and I'm sorry, Elliot, I didn't mean to cut you off, but
no, it's okay.
I tweeted about this yesterday, and I think I got some hits on it. And I mean this. Like, when I think of Cubs, I think of Anthony Rizzo. That was the first name that pops in your head. It's the first face you see in your mind, and that's got to be a bizarre thing. And while I think everybody knew it was coming, just knowing about it or reading about it is different than actually feeling it. And feeling it's just really weird. Even being a rival on the opposite side, I don't have any skin in the game there, but it's strange.
Somebody took the picture that was taken right when Rizzo, Bryant, and Baez met in the middle of the field after they had won the World Series, and edited it for them to all be.
It was a great edit, by the way.
Uniforms, and it's just so weird.
I know, that's a great edit, but whoever did that Photoshop job should be employed by Microsoft or Apple or Adobe or whoever it was. That was a really good.
I think it was SI. I think it was somebody at Sports Illustrated.
It says SI to be. Whoever did that, though, I don't care who it is. Yeah. They should probably leave SI and go somewhere that pays better.
Ron, you're absolutely right. I don't recall anything like this ever happening in history in season. This is reminiscent of what the Marlins have always done. They've always been loaded with talent, and in the off season, they just get rid of all of it. So this is reminiscent of that. But yeah, in season, I don't recall anything like this.
I mean,
ever happening.
And Pete, I think you're right. I mean, the Marlins, and they became synonymous with doing this kind of thing, like building a winner or buying it, whatever you want to say, and winning and then blowing it up. But it just feels so much different when it's an iconic franchise and not one that just started in 1993. It feels way different that it's the Cubs and a team that, look, I mean, quite frankly, I'm not saying they needed this, but it was a good thing for them, right? I mean, it's just so strange that you saw something that you thought was going to be like a dynasty for years and within 24 hours, completely dismantled. It's a hard thing to get your head around, even as a rival fan.
Yep. And I think that the tough part about the whole dynasty thing, and I'll admit, I was one of the ones who was talking about it possibly being a dynasty. I thought that we were set up for years. What we didn't know then, what we couldn't know, is that baseball was on the verge of changing. And that pitching was about to undergo a renaissance that made all of the plans that Hoyer and Epstein had made completely obsolete. If this team had been put together not 5 years ago, but 10 years ago, then maybe we would be talking about a Cubs dynasty. Mm-hmm. But they got put together right as everybody started throwing 95 and up. And all of a sudden, all those power hitters, who were boom and bust, doesn't work having all of that in your lineup. You have to have diversity in your lineup, and that's the one thing that the Cubs were never able to do. And I know that there's been a lot of ink spilled and a lot of anguish over them letting the core go, but with the exception of Rizzo, there wasn't much diversity when you look at the plate approach of Javier Baez, Kyle Schwarber, Ian Happ, Chris Bryant. They're all swinging for the fences on every swing. Now, some of them are better at identifying pitches, and some of them have better strike zone discipline than the others.
Not last night. Not in the last 48 hours they haven't.
No, you're right. But they all have basically the same plate approach with the exception of Rizzo. Well, you can't we're seeing that now. You can't build a lineup like that.
Yeah.
You have to have diversity. You have to make pitchers work. And that's the one thing that we've seen for the last 4 years from the Cubs. Their lineup did not make pitchers work. They made it very easy for pitchers to get through that lineup because it was basically the same approach. The only person that you couldn't attack the same way was Rizzo. So you give into him. You throw it inside and hope that he yanks it at somebody in the shift.
And that's what made them so dangerous in 2016 because they were getting the starters out so early because they were so patient at the plate. But then something changed and they just became less patient at the plate. And that has been their doom.
You know what changed?
Hey guys, I don't want
to. The hitting coaches?
No, the league learned them. Think about it. In 2015, Baez had only been up for 2 years. Rizzo was, we talked about it. He had a different approach once he got 2 strikes. So you take him out of it. Baez had only been up for 2 years. Bryant had only been up since 2015. Contreras came up during 2016. Yeah. Schwarber hadn't been exposed to the league because he had been injured. I mean, you look at that lineup. Yeah, of course they had success. The league didn't have a book on them yet.
That's true, Pete. And it is for every rookie or sophomore that comes up. You're always more curious as the league builds a knowledge or history of them, how their game plan changes, and can those players adjust to that? The great ones do.
Right.
And the problem with you guys is you had half of a lineup that was all new, and who was going to adjust and who wasn't. But I want to get another opinion on this because we have another Cardinals fan on with us right now. A long time listener to our show, a good friend of the show. We hear him all the time. We usually do this live. I sensed some sadness when he asked me earlier on a tweet I posted or shared through our Twitter feed. Yes, this is going to be live. And I'm like, not tonight. I'm fat. I just came off vacation. I'm bloated. I haven't had a lot of water, but I've had a lot of other stuff, and I don't look good. I look unhealthy. Everything's falling apart. So I didn't want to be on camera tonight, but our good friend Smitty is on with us. You know him on Twitter. You know him on Facebook. So, hey, look, we'll get into the Cardinals here in a little bit, I think, but we're on the Cubs topic right now. But given everything you know about the trades that have happened, seeing the Cubs franchise just literally change within hours, how are you absorbing all that?
Hey guys, how you doing tonight? Thanks for letting me on the show.
No, it's a pleasure. Give us your thoughts on the Cubs.
Hey,
and try to hide your happiness.
So,
we're trying to be sad. We're trying to be sensitive to the guys here.
Well, honestly, that's kind of my answer to the question. You know, as you know me, I've been a Cardinals fan since I'm 7 years old. So watching the Cubs go through just an utter breakdown at the trade deadline should make me happy as a Cardinals fan, right? But one of my best friends is a Cubs fan. And as this is all transpiring, I texted him and said, hey, do I need to call on a wellness check for you over there? And he texted me back and said, you know, this is the team I've loved for my entire life. And to watch this happen after such promise, after 2016, he goes, it's just breaking my heart. And it doesn't happen very often, but it kind of made me feel bad for a Cubs fan. I was like, man, I feel bad for texting you that now.
Yeah,
so I honestly, as a Cardinal fan, I like as far as the rivalry goes, seeing the Cubs do something that would make me feel happy as a Cards fan. But then again, knowing how much I feel about my team, if I saw them do that, I know how much Cubs fans must be going through. So I kind of feel both sides of it, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, it does to me. And I know Pete at times, like when anything is bad that's happened to our franchise, the loss of somebody like Oscar Taveras or something, you've usually sent along a text that said, hey man, sorry about, you lost a player. That's a terrible feeling. And I think back in the day, it was even Darryl Kyle. You had sent something to me as well. We always kind of feel this thing. Well, this is not a death of somebody, which is completely different. I'm not trying to compare the two, but
right.
I worry, guys. Like, I get why this happened. I get the business reasons why this happened. I get the strategy of why something like this happens. And what you hope is that Cubs fans don't get snake bitten by this and are promised, hey, we're going to have another magical rebuild and we'll go on this run again and it'll be better because we've learned our lesson. If it doesn't happen, it's a risky move, right? Like letting these iconic players go. And they really were. I mean, they were larger than life names wearing that jersey, and they're all gone. And it is riskier than what you might think initially. And then when you stop and pause on it for a second, you're like, hold on. If this strategy or move doesn't work or doesn't pan out, because it's really hard to do this in baseball. We all know this. I mean, we can get into what the Dodgers are doing later, which I think is absolutely shit. And I think that's the kind of stuff that needs to stop in baseball. But I think that if this doesn't work, it's risky. It is a risky move.
I'll give you that, Ron. I will. Yeah. But I think a riskier move is committing almost half of your payroll to 3 players.
Sure.
And that was what they were looking at. Everybody's like, oh, just pay Bryant the $40 million and get him, pay him $40 million per for however long he wants to contract and keep him around. Sorry. Chris Bryant's not worth $40 million. He's not. But you got to think of the fans that aren't thinking like you. Or thinking like me, I understand that,
right?
but even if you take it from that, even if you just look, and I know that this is what the front office was doing. They were looking at the contracts for next year, and they're saying, is he worth more than Anthony Rendon? No. He's not as good a bat, and he's definitely not as good a fielder. Is he worth as much as Nolan Arenado? No, he's not as good a fielder. Is he as good as Manny Machado? No, he's not as good a fielder. Well, now you're down under $32 million.
And he has an agent that doesn't help out with that, right? I mean,
exactly.
Right.
Absolutely not.
And what you've also found out over the last 5 years is that Chris Bryant has to be 100% healthy to be effective, because when he's not, he has a month like July. When he is, he has a month like June, and you love it. But when he is not 100% healthy, he is not worth that money. And I hate to be so cold about it, but that's the fact. And then you look at Baez. What are you going to pay Baez? Is he better than Xander Bogaerts? Maybe, but that's $20 million. And then you go to Rizzo, who's 32, who has a history of back problems, and you look at what the salaries are for next year. He's not worth Goldschmidt money. Joey Votto's 38 years old. $25 million for him is an overpay. Chris Davis is $21 million in overpay. Eric Hosmer's $21 million in overpay. Is he better than Jose Abreu? Probably not. And Jose Abreu is going to get 19.6 next year. So all of a sudden, you're looking at basically what the Cubs offered him.
Yeah, and Pete, you're 100% spot on, right? Like, he's not worth what Boris is going to be pitching in the offseason. You're 100% right. And they are.
And if the Giants want to overpay him, and I'm sorry, Cubs fans, but Chris Bryant indicated today he was never going to sign with the Cubs. He said he and his wife have talked about eventually ending up in San Francisco. He wasn't going to go. Well, he wasn't going to sign with the Cubs.
Let's just talk about that for a second. Let's pause on that. I mean, I don't think that club is a bad place for him. I actually think that's a really good destination for him. You know, look, San Francisco is lacking. I mean, guys, seriously, get past Buster Posey's name for a minute. Like, who the fuck's on the Giants? Johnny Cueto? I mean, we don't know we don't know this team. They really do lack a. I'm sorry. I know Buster Posey
all we
gets.
know though is that they're winning.
I know,
right.
and they always do, and they're in that mode right now. Is this an even year? No, it's not. It's an odd year. So what the hell are they doing? They have no business being in first place right now. But really, this is San Francisco's thing, and they've always done this damn thing, and it drives me nuts. And they're so good at doing it, where they put a fundamentally sound team out in the field. They're not spectacular. You don't see a lot of all-stars elected, but they're one of those teams that just kills you death by paper cut. They'll get you in the playoffs, and the hype might be around you, but then the pressure's on you, and they let you beat yourself. And that's exactly what they did in 2010, 2012, and 2014. They weren't spectacular. They had really solid pitching. I mean, the name they had was Bumgarner for a few years. And what they did is they're like remind me so much of a college World Series team where they were playing so fundamentally sound. They didn't make mistakes. They set themselves up to take advantage of your mistakes. And I feel like that's what they're doing again, minus Bruce Bochy. And so they needed one name, one face, and they got Chris Bryant. And I feel like that's a good spot for him to land. I mean, on a personal level for him, maybe. I don't know him at all. But it just feels like a good fit.
Well, and that's an interesting thing that came out. Hoyer said that he actually put some, and you hope that he took the best offer that was on the table.
Yeah.
But he did say that he put some thought into who he was approaching. Like, he was thinking putting Bryant with the Giants because he was on the West Coast, he'd be closer to his home. Putting Rizzo with the Yankees because his family is from there. Putting Baez on the Mets because Francisco Lindor plays there. Like, he said that there was some thought into who he was engaging as trade partners and who he was pushing to get a better return from.
Well, I mean, you could have picked, if I would have picked 3 uniforms I could see Chris Bryant in, and Sam, I want to ask you the same thing. I mean, San Francisco would have been one of those. I would have said, yeah, I could see him in that.
No, I wasn't expecting that at all. Now, I'll tell you this.
Hey, I brought you onto this show to agree with me. That's it.
Yeah, well, I didn't see it coming.
All right.
My youngest son, Logan, he's 12, and he's been a diehard Giants fan since basically he could walk because his grandma I will say this from my wife's side, not from mine, is a Giants fan. And she pretty much brainwashed him since he was younger. So he loved it. I mean, he was all over it. He was jumping up and down. He came over. He's like, Dad, the Giants got Chris Bryant. I was like, yeah, I know.
Well, before the deal we made in January, I thought it would have been just really strange. Somehow, some way, Cardinals ended up with Chris Bryant. Somehow, some way, just to force him to play in St. Louis, so he could all tell us once again how boring it is. But that didn't happen. But guys,
but you did get a Cardinals legend. So
I don't want to. I don't want to go there yet. I want to save that.
It's funny though. Brian and Brebbia are on the same team now, right?
Brebbia was. Of course, we'd all love to have him this year, but we didn't know what was going to happen this year. The Cardinals have always had a ton of arms that, were starters in the minors that somehow worked out in the bullpen. And, when we didn't sign Brett, and I'll tell you, I'll be fully honest about this. Sometimes Cardinals Twitter just annoys the shit out of me. Not for the skill of a player, but for their personality, for their beards, and all this other stuff. Like, he shows up in spring training clean shaven, and he grows a beard throughout the season. Man, I just don't care about that kind of stuff. And in fact, it annoys me when that's what people talk about. I don't care. Brevia, though, for a pickup that they made with him, he was a really nice pitcher. He was a really nice bullpen piece. And yes, we would love to have him this year because it's been a shit show out there half the days. And yeah, so fine. He's on the same team with Bryant in San Francisco. Fine. Celebrate. There'll be a handful of Cardinals Twitter people, Sam. We know who they are.
Brevia is actually in their minor league system.
Well, he fucking should be.
Up with the big club.
Well, he should be with that face. But no, I'm disparaging him, and I shouldn't do that. But I just look. He was a nice player, but I wasn't going to piss and moan over losing him. It sucks when a player goes on Tommy John like Rosenthal did, and they kind of cut a guy loose when he's in the middle of that kind of condition. He has to rehab on his own. That's never pleasant to hear about. It's never pleasant to watch, and it kind of feels cold. But it happens in baseball. Guys, I got to tell you, while we're still on the Cubs, and I want to stay on this for a while because this is the bigger story than what the Cardinals have done. To be honest with you, I mean, seeing Rizzo in a Yankees uniform is not shocking. Seeing him in pictures and interview, it's like kind of doesn't seem weird. I got to tell you guys, seeing Baez in a Mets uniform to me just didn't look right. It looks weird. Looks like I'm seeing a guy in a World Baseball Classic uniform. Like, he shouldn't be there. He's just there temporarily, and he is most likely, right? But it just that one, Pete, to me, that one looks odd.
Yeah, I'll agree with you. Although I have to say, Rizzo doesn't look out of place in a Yankees uniform, but he doesn't look happy. The pictures I've seen, he doesn't look like he's happy to be there.
Well, you know what? He was a Cub. And like I said at the beginning, we talked. I mean, I think that, once he arrived in Chicago, I think he was all about it. And I think he was the exact flavor. And it pains me to say this because I don't want you guys to enjoy anything. But he was the Cubs. I mean, I told you before, like when I thought of the Cubs, I see his face, and I still do. And it's just very weird that he's elsewhere. So,
and I know all other Cubs fans are thinking the same thing. Like, what are the chances that we get him back next year? Are they, would they re-sign him? But I think at this point, it'd be more likely that they may try to get Baez back before Rizzo, I think.
I agree.
Really? I find that hard to believe.
Yeah. Yeah, I do, because I think... Well, Elliot, explain why you think it is, because I'm sure that we're probably of the same mind.
Ron's already touched on it. His age. The fact that we've got guys who can play first. I mean, already. I mean, Wisdom is doing an okay job. I mean, he's not a first baseman by trade.
He's not a long-term solution, though. You know that.
Right. Well, right. And then, but Rizzo, what we've seen, the trend with Rizzo and his production the last couple of years have gone down, and the back problems. I think that just kind of all adds up for the front office to say, we need to get somebody younger in here that is a first baseman. So we'll see what happens. And then Baez, them going after Baez, he is younger, he is flashy. That is one thing I feel like that is missing on this team. I mean, there's a lot of things missing on this team right now, but as far as like that it factor, there is no it factor on the team right now. Baez would be it.
Yeah, and yes, okay. So from that standpoint, I can understand that. Plus, he has a Cubs tattoo on one of his arms, so I don't know what he's going to do there. But Sam, I had a panic attack when I saw the trade that the Cardinals had made, and I'll explain why. I saw Lester, which I did not see coming. That I did not expect to see that name pop up in a Cardinals trade. That was shocking. But when I saw this on Twitter, and you know how accurate that is sometimes, I saw, hey, Cardinals deal for Lester, and this was not a media person. It wasn't anybody with a blue check mark. It was, but why Hap? When I saw but why Hap, I'm like, you got to be fucking kidding me. They traded for Ian Happ? And I'm serious. I totally thought that. I mean, I wasn't thinking J-Hap at all. And I'm like, they've got an outfield jam-packed. Why the fuck would they trade for this guy? He's terrible.
I can't believe you just said that, because whenever the trade for Hap happened.
I got it.
I was either at work Thursday or I was busy Friday. I can't remember which day the trade went through, but Gene actually messaged me, and it said we got, and then the first name, and then Hap ! And then there was more of the message down, but I was busy, so I think it came through at Thursday when I was at work, because I can't look at my phone at work. I just heard the buzz and then quick took a peek, and I just saw we got, and then Hap ! And I saw that and I was like, well, that kind of makes sense, because we need a bat off the bench. And then whenever I got a chance to look at the actual message, it said J.A. Happ, and I was like, is he even still playing?
No, I was the same way. I'm like, I didn't know this guy was still in the league. I really didn't. And obviously they traded him from Minnesota for John Gant, and so basically they swapped dugouts when Minnesota and St. Louis arrived in Chicago early Friday. But yeah, guys, I seriously thought, and the internet got me for like a good minute or two. I really thought the Cardinals had got Ian Happ, and I was like, what in the hell?
That would have been the dessert on the shit dinner that we had been forced to eat all day Thursday and Friday, to have gotten rid of Ian Happ. That would have helped cleanse the palate for me.
Yeah, it was just a head scratcher for a while. I'm like, why would they do this? They've got an outfield that's relatively healthy now with Carlson, Bader, who's been playing great, and O'Neill, he's a changed hitter this year. And I'm like, why this? And I kind of like, is it just because they don't have any bats off the bench? I mean, they don't, which is true. But I was thinking Ian Happ is not the answer off the bench. That is a Brandon Moss disaster all over again. And, but yeah, I mean, I can't say I was relieved when I heard it was J-Hap. So I'm like, I was like kind of, Sam just said, I'm like, I didn't know the guy was even still alive. So whatever, the shocking part of the whole deal, obviously, is the deal for John Lester. I mean, and they gave up Lane Thomas, which was, I mean, as far as what we saw from him in St. Louis, totally a 4A player. I mean, he wasn't doing any, when given an opportunity, and you can make a case he wasn't given many, but Toronto gave up on him for a reason. And from what we saw at the major league level in St. Louis, it didn't look like much. So I feel like, guys, they didn't give up anything for Lester, because I don't think Lane Thomas had any future here, short-term or long-term. And what you brought in was a veteran. And yes, a veteran who's not who he was 5 years ago. But a veteran who's at least been there and done that, and maybe can get you past the 5th inning, which they have been struggling so bad to get past. So to me, I was like, okay, this deal makes sense. I think 2021, Sam, is a tread the water year. I think their target is 2022. Now, what they're going to do, I don't know. But I just feel like that's what it is, because they've got money coming off the books. We all know the names. And so I think they just want to survive 2021 and be technically on paper contenders. But I don't think much is expected. But what do you think?
No, I'm pretty much on the same page as you are. So in the off season, I mean, you can look back on my tweets throughout the off season and see that I had no hopes that they were moving for anything. I think I even messaged you guys in one of your live shows and said, "Hey, I think this is our offense," and it had Matt Carpenter starting at third base opening day, and I was going out and saying, "Hey, guys, calm down. There's no way we're getting Nolan Arenado," and then all of a sudden we turn around and get Nolan Arenado.
I know.
And then that was it, and my main thing with that coming into the season was, hey guys, we have a very weak bullpen. Of course, we had at the time Alex Reyes, Genesis Cabrera, Gio Gallegos, and Jordan Hicks coming out of the pen. That's just 4 guys. I mean, you need more than that. And then Jordan Hicks gets hurt, and it's like, holy crap, our bullpen is shot to hell now. And then you have Miles Michaelis, you have Flaherty, you have Martinez that get hurt in the starting rotation. All of a sudden, our pitching is shot, and we have no answers for it. So coming into the trade deadline, I was like, okay, so we need bullpen help, and we need a bench or a bat off the bench. And then they pick up, of course, J.A. Happ. We talked about that. And then they turn around, they pick up John Lester. And at first I was like, you know what? I mean, this guy's past his prime. Well, so's Adam Wainwright. And Adam Wainwright's turned around for the last 2 or so years and been arguably our best pitcher. And John Lester is kind of in the same situation. The guy's been there. He's done that. I mean, he's won multiple rings. He's been in the postseason
many
times.
Mostly against the Cardinals or at their expense.
Right. But I mean, the guy's been there. He knows what it takes to win. I mean, he's got that grit. He wants to win, and you're bringing in that veteran presence. And I was like, you know what? That's okay. But still, here we are. We haven't addressed the bullpen, and we still have nothing off the bench. And Ron, I can't remember what game it was, but it was maybe a week or so ago. It's right out of the All-Star break, I think. But there was a situation where the game was on the line, and they were bringing a pinch hitter, and they were bringing in Matt Carpenter. Well, the opposing team countered with a left-handed pitcher, so they took out Matt Carpenter and they brought in Jose Rondon. And I'm sitting there thinking, I'm like, this is our answer off the bench is Jose Rondon.
Yeah, it's not good. It's not good. I mean, you've touched on multiple fronts there, and the guys here know John Lester better than we do. But look, I know I was really frustrated with some Twitter people I follow, and I'm good friends with actually, all saying that, wow, this is the worst move the Cardinals could have made, bringing in J. Happ and John Lester. And I'm like looking at this going, okay, I'm sure that you can form an argument for that. But do you think we're better off having John Gant in the bullpen, who can't throw strikes except for tonight? He threw a few against them. And Lane Thomas in Memphis. Like, we're better off having those 2 guys in our organization than bringing in 2 veteran pitchers past their prime into their career. Yes, we understand that. You think we're better off not have made any moves because you're not happy with them. And I know what they're getting at. They're getting at, hey, look, Max Scherzer was out there available. Trevor Story, why couldn't anybody get him from Colorado? Trey Turner, like the Nationals all of a sudden made him available. The price tag on Max Scherzer and Trey Turner, insane, and you're only going to pay that if you're the Dodgers, which you've got deep pockets and you can throw money at problems. And that's okay. They can do that. They can absorb a mistake if they make one. Like teams like the Cardinals can't. They can't do that. So I don't blame them for not landing those guys or one of those guys. And I'm just really kind of befuddled by the anger that came out of this. Like, you've got 2 veteran pitchers. We know they're not as capable as they used to be, but just rewind the clock a bit to like John Smoltz, who got traded to the Cardinals in 2009, or Will Clark, end of his career, they got traded to the Cardinals in 2000. Larry Walker, yes, he had a little bit of more control left, but he was traded end of his career to the Cardinals. Like, sometimes a change of scenery, just being in contention, even if it's only mathematical, can get you a benefit, can eat innings, can save your bullpen, can make your team overall better. I don't understand the outrage over these two deals. Disappointing that we didn't get a big name, fine. But I just don't understand. Like, the Cardinals need so many fixes in their roster that I don't know why people expected at the trade deadline they were going to fix them all. It's just not possible.
I agree with you. So I may not have worded it as properly as I should have, but I'm with you on that. You know, as underwhelming as the moves that were made, and don't get me wrong, I was very underwhelmed. God, I can't talk. Underwhelmed when I saw the trade for Jay Happ. But then again, when I saw the trade for John Lester, I was like, why are we doing this? And then I sat back for a minute and thought about the points I brought up just a minute ago, and thought, no, this is not a bad pickup. Now the Jay Happ, we'll see. Maybe he proves me wrong. I hope he does, and he comes in and just mows down hitters from start to finish. But I'm very pessimistic. I knew going into it, we're not getting Max Scherzer. I mean, if we had gone up after Max, I mean, the cost for him would have included, in my opinion, Liberatore and Gorman both.
Yeah. It would have been pieces that John Mozeliak has already come out and said that he wasn't going to spend. They were not going to trade away their top 5 prospects, regardless of how the league rates them. According to how the Cardinals rate them, they weren't going to deal any of them. Guys, you know John Lester better than anybody. And so, yes, he is not the pitcher. We all know this. This goes without saying. He's totally not the pitcher he was when he first signed with Chicago. But you guys know him better than anybody. So a veteran presence like this in a clubhouse who's been there and done that and been on 3 world champion teams, how could this be a detriment, like most Cardinals fans who are doomsday?
It'll be a detriment every 5 days.
You're saying that just because you want us to lose.
Yeah.
Oh, we don't have to root for you guys to lose. You guys are doing that enough on your own.
No, man, we just took a series from the almighty Twins. I mean, come on, give us some credit here.
I mean, does he make the Cardinals better?
Than they were before they got him.
Yes.
At this time, I would say yes. I mean, the way it's set, going into the season, you got a healthy Flaherty, you got a healthy Michaelis, you got a healthy Jordan Hicks, and you say we're going to go out and get John Lester. I don't know about that, but as it stands right now, yes, he makes us better.
I would have to say, at least gives you another arm that you can possibly reasonably assure that it can get you past 5 innings, which the Cardinals have really struggled from June to now to have a starter that can get them past the 5th inning, and they just haven't had that, guys.
You'd be disappointed to know that Lester hasn't gotten past the 4th inning in his last 6 starts.
Yeah, he's not going to get you guys past the 5th inning. He's going to expose you once again with that nightmare of a bullpen that you have that's going to either hit or walk the bases loaded every night.
Well, I can't blame them for trying, and I can't blame them for dealing John Gant and Lane Thomas, who had no future here, none whatsoever. And yes, if recent history plays out, we'll see Lane Thomas in the All-Star game next year.
God, he's going to hit 35 home runs next year with 110 RBIs. It's going to happen.
We'll see John Gant as a Minnesota Twin getting the Rolaids Relief Man Award, if that's still a thing. But I can't blame them for doing this now. Those 2 players, I mean, Sam, this has been a thing this year where John Gant couldn't throw strikes with the Cardinals. I mean, part of their problem was They lead the league in walks by far, not even close. And he was part of that problem. Somehow, when he was a starter for 2 months, he pulled a little bit of a Houdini act, and he got out of most of it. But that's not sustainable. League will figure you out, as Pete pointed out early on in the show here. The league will figure you out quick and adjust. And so he wasn't going to be a starter.
No, and I didn't. I'll step back a minute. I was a big proponent of him starting over Martinez in the preseason, just because I liked Martinez in the bullpen.
Yeah, I do too. I agree with you on that one.
And I was pushing for him to be a starter, and you're right. I mean, for the first couple months, I mean, he pulled a Houdini act. I mean, it felt like every inning, you know, he would come in and somehow he would walk the bases loaded and then get out of it.
And you would look at the pitch count in the fourth inning, it would be on like 76 pitches, and you're like, how the hell has he got through this?
Right.
But all right, so guys, I mean, it's weird seeing John Lester in a Cardinals uniform. I mean, he's been, you know, in the early part of his career, he was a thorn in the Cardinals side, just being a Boston Red Sox. And then, of course, he came to the dreaded Cubs and knocked them out of the playoffs in 2015, won the World Series in 2016. And, you know, we've had to, you know, deal with him for a long time. Walking into this year, never in a million years would I have thought that come August 1st, I would see him in a Cardinals hat and a Cardinals jersey, prepping for a start on Tuesday against the Braves. I mean, that's just wild. Never saw that one coming. I don't really have any words for it.
Ron, there are 2 words for it. Cardinals legend.
It's right. And I hope they do have some games against the Padres, and I hope that he picks off Tommy Pham again. I hope that son of a bitch.
I would love to see that.
I hope he gets boisterous enough and pompous enough to get that lead off, and I hope Lester just tosses one right to Goldschmidt, nails him at first. I will buy a Lester jersey, only because I think it's the appropriate thing to do. So when I'm there next weekend, I'll pick one up. Pete, I don't want to steal this one, so I want to go back to just baseball in general. The whole trade deadline, everything that happened, the people that moved. I want to start with the Dodgers because this was I felt like
they're going all NBA style and trying to build a super team here.
Oh, shit, man. I hate it. And I hate this so much, guys. I don't like it. Pete, I'm going to let you lead this one in because just what the Dodgers have done, you might not have an issue with it like I do, but I want you to go ahead and take this whole thing and walk it forward. And before we do that, Sam, if you want to stick around, man, love to have you, but I understand if you got to get going, go and give us your Twitter handle so people can follow you more than they do already. And
I guess he's sticking around.
I mean, I can stick around if you want. If you want me to drop off, it's fine.
No. Don't want you to drop off, but just being respectful of your time. I know you're home, and if you want to stick around, I want Pete to just lead us into this Dodgers conversation. Pete, I don't know if this is good. I feel like this is I feel like baseball is in not a great place right now because all the talent is focused on like 6 or 7 teams, maybe 8. And I don't like it. I don't like where it's going. I don't like what the Dodgers have done here. And I might be wrong. I might be off base, but I want to hear your take on it. So I want you to walk us into this one.
Well, I think
it feels like an NBA field, doesn't it?
It does.
And, the fascinating thing about it for me was that it seemed like early Friday morning that this was a done deal and that Scherzer was going to the Padres.
Right.
That's, and it wasn't just one national reporter. It was everybody was confirming it and that it was just a matter of getting it done. And obviously Andrew Friedman decided, nope, that's not going to happen. And I honestly, the stunning thing about it was that AJ Preller had no response. He once Scherzer went with Trey Turner, went to the Dodgers, it was like AJ Preller was so stunned by it that he didn't have any kind of secondary move. It was almost like he had thrown all his eggs in one basket. But Yeah, you don't see many teams that sign a guy who, yes, he's injured, or who trade for a guy who, yes, he's injured. But basically they picked him up so that they could throw him into their bullpen. And that's Danny Duffy. When any other of the contending teams would have loved to have picked Danny Duffy up for the back end of their rotation. And the Dodgers were like, nah, we're going to have him around just as a stretch guy, as an emergency guy, if we need him, and then go out and trade for Scherzer and Turner. And you're absolutely right, Ron. And look, credit to the Dodgers. Yes, they have a huge television contract that is printing money for them, and they're in one of the largest markets, and, their games sell out. And they have I would guess they probably have more business attendees at Dodgers games than any other team, right? Where people are essentially writing off the cost of the tickets to go to the game because there's some kind of business thing. But so they're already printing money, and then they've actually done what we all wish that our teams would do. They've actually developed a farm system that continues to produce, and they keep calling guys up, and they were in a position where they have a bunch of young guys in their team. They have cost control. They're printing money like crazy, and they can afford to get rid of prospects, really good prospects, in order to make a push for this year. That having been said, part of me really, really, really wants this to backfire on them and have like the White Sox win the World Series so that this doesn't work out. It's probably not going to happen, but still, I can dream. Yeah, no, that's it, guys. You guys can talk now.
No, uncomfortable silence. Sorry, Pete. I didn't realize. I didn't realize I had fired up a response. I didn't realize my mic was on mute still. But
I thought I lost y'all.
No, I really agree with you too. I mean, I want them to, fine, if they make it deep into the playoffs, great. I want to see it fail too, because I don't like when teams purchase titles. I hate it. I hate it so much. For the fans of the Dodgers, I mean, you're like, yeah, they did what was necessary. They had the tools and the resources to be able to do whatever was necessary to win. That's all fine, but I just think for the health of the sport, it just really lacks disparity in this sport. I mean, it's all the talent is just concentrated in so few teams right now. In the National League, it's all the West. I mean, it's all everybody's focused on. Yeah. Top three teams are the Giants, Padres, and Dodgers. Nobody's talking about anybody else. That's not good for the sport. In the American League, I really don't know who anybody's talking about besides the White Sox and Tampa Bay. The Yankees, of course, have acquired some talent here, so they're getting some news. But this is just not good for the sport with so many teams Ron, just out of it.
Honestly, that's part of the reason why I find myself. I kind of want to root for the AL this year when the playoffs roll around. Specifically, the two teams that you named, I want to root for the White Sox and the Rays because largely those are players that they've developed. Like they've done it
or traded for, right? Traded talent like Chris Sale and Jose Quintana.
But if there's a right way, they've done it. They haven't gone out and bought their players for the most part. And so I kind of want to see them succeed just to kind of, show baseball that there is a different way. And who knows, this may be a last gasp for the Dodgers way of doing things.
I hope it is. I really hope it is.
We may see a hard cap come in with this next CBA along with a floor. I would imagine that if there's a cap, it'll also be accompanied by a floor.
We would hope. As fans, you would have to hope for that, right? Like that teams have to spend to a certain level because they can't get away with this tanking thing anymore. You can't get away with, whoever the guy is that owns the Pirates, Nutting or whatever the hell his name is. You can't be allowed to get away with this and own a franchise. It's not. You cannot do that and have a league that's interesting and for the long-term future be viable. It's just not realistic. And so, yes, I agree, Pete. I mean, I think we've been saying this for years. Like, the union's not going to like any of this, but I think that the union's biggest proponent right now, and I kind of I guess, cautiously praise the Padres for doing this, but they paid Tatis Jr. earlier in his career. They didn't have to. So I have to think the union looks at clubs like that going, oh, wow, they did it way earlier than what they needed to pay this guy. And ultimately, I think as we head into 2022 in the new CBA, that's what they're going to have to do. That's what we're going to have to fight for, is to get the young players to be paid earlier, because we know what happens here, right? After the control is over, nobody wants to pay these guys. And so the fascination is all the young, unpaid talent coming up. That's what they're all focused on harvesting and producing, right? From a business standpoint, you can certainly understand that, but from a fan interest, there has to be a balance. And it's the way we talk about the game now, it's just so unbalanced that I worry about its future. You've heard me say this for a year, that I'm just really worried about the balance of the game, the variety. And it's just not there. So I hope this corrects itself. And I hate what the Dodgers have just done. They had a rotation that they did not need Max Scherzer. I understand that Bauer is out right now, and he may not pitch another. He may not throw another pitch for the Dodgers this year.
I'd be surprised if he throws another pitch
or
in
ever
baseball.
Yeah, right, or ever. But they did not need to do this. And on top of that, they acquire a shortstop strategically ahead of their pending free agent shortstop in Seager, which they did this for a leverage move. On top of trying to win now, which I don't blame them for doing, they acquired one of the top pitchers and a shortstop to gain leverage against their pending free agent shortstop. They did that on purpose. So I don't know, man. I don't like it. The Dodgers finally won their truncated World Series last year. They're in line to probably win another one. Because honestly, in a short series or even a 7-game series, are you insane to not favor them? I mean, I'm rooting for other teams, like you said, Pete. But if I had to bet my house on it, I'm not betting against them right now. And I hate this. I hate this for the sport. I don't like powerhouse teams.
Well, it'll be interesting once the playoffs start, because it's going to go through the West. I mean, we all know that. So.
Oh yeah, in the National League, it's absolutely going to go through the West.
Yeah, the one thing that we can dream on is that the Dodgers are not able to catch the Giants, and so they have to play the wild card games.
Yep.
Because then it's as we've seen the last couple of years with the Cubs, then it's a coin flip.
Yep. Short series, anything can happen.
Yep, anything can happen in a game or in a short series.
Still, having Max Scherzer in your rotation, if there is any
it helps
handful of contracts that have actually lived up to expectation, you cannot argue against his deal.
Nope.
No.
He's done it. And honestly, and I know this is self-serving a little bit, but I would say that Lester's deal with the Cubs largely was fulfilled.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
But
especially because you got far more value out of the back end of that contract than I think anybody expected.
Yeah, and there are very few we've talked about this a million times on the show. There are few long-term deals that we feel live up to expectation, and there's only a handful that did. He's one of them, and so he's a gamer. It's clearly not about the money or prestige to him. He's a competitor, and they got a really good pitcher, especially at the end of his career. He wanted another chance to win. He's got it, and they're going to be dangerous. So, yeah, I would not put my mortgage up against the Dodgers, but I'm rooting against them for sure.
Yep.
That's healthy.
I'm glad we can all come together on one thing.
I still hate your team.
And that one thing, Elliot, is that John Lester is going to be a Cardinals legend?
Absolutely.
Just wait until he hits a home run in the playoffs. And Ron jumps on here singing his praises. I've always been a John Lester fan. Check out my jersey.
That guy has the face of a home run hitter on him.
He does.
When he hit the walk-off against Max Scherzer in the playoffs, it's going to be epic.
I'm laughing mostly because the Cardinals are going to make the playoffs. I don't believe it.
No, you're right. I don't believe it
I'm
either.
praying.
I know. We're all praying. You know what?
Milwaukee's going to have an epic meltdown for that.
No, Cardinals aren't going to win this division.
Here's the thing. I don't know if I tag Milwaukee as being that good or just the rest of the division is so poor. And I lean in the latter direction, but I think they picked up maybe Milwaukee. Did they lose today? I don't have the scores in front of me, but
yeah, they did.
Okay. So they picked up a game. So 8.5, that's still relying on a lot of bad baseball played by Milwaukee, who for the first 4 months haven't played bad baseball. So that's a lot to ask, right? And in the wild card, you might be closer in the wild card, but you're asking a lot of teams to play bad. So you have to hop over a lot of teams. So we've seen how this stuff goes. Mathematically, yes, they have a chance. Realistically, it's just going to be so hard for the Cardinals to make the playoffs. So, yeah, they'll stay in contention, and sometime in September it'll end, and we'll see what their plan is for 2022, which is still very unclear. So I'm not sure what they have up their sleeve. I know they have money coming off the books, but I don't know necessarily who's available that's going to change this or turn it around. It's a lot to ask. And
to read Cardinals Twitter, it's Trevor Story. He's coming your way any day now.
Yeah, that's fine.
That I don't see that happening.
I don't either.
That poor guy. Oh my God. Did you read the interview with him the day after? I don't know what's going on here.
He wanted. I have a feeling that, and I don't think I'm wrong. I think that guy wanted to be dealt so bad.
Yeah.
But no, we're dealing with whatever baseball has left us, and here we are, kind of scrambling to make sense of everything. And John Lester will make a start for the Cardinals on Tuesday.
Well, here's the thing, Ron. I'm sorry to butt in, but I've been watching all this Trevor Story talk to you about coming to the Cardinals and no one's bringing him over and everything. I just don't see it happening. I feel like the front office feels like Paul DeJong is their guy, and no matter what bad streaks he goes through, that's their guy.
Yep. I agree.
That's their shortstop, and I just don't. I feel like, and even when I was watching the trade deadline rumors, and everybody was trying to pump up Trey Story coming over, or Trey Turner coming over here, it's not going to happen. I mean,
yeah.
And this is my opinion from a fan that has no insider information whatsoever, has no educational background on these trades or anything whatsoever. I'm just a fan. I just watch the game.
Well, join the club. I mean, we are too, and I'm with you on that. I don't. Trevor Story doesn't make me do backflips to begin with. I mean, he's a nice player, but you're absolutely right in saying that the Cardinals, once they kind of extend a guy and say, "Hey, that's one of our cornerstone players," it's gonna be, you have to move the earth to get them to admit to a mistake and to deal them. And it's taken that with several guys. Look how long they took to finally cut the ties with Dexter Fowler. Terrible contract, terrible signing. It was an FU signing to the Cubs. Let's just call it what it is. And it took them 4 years out of a 5-year contract to finally say, yeah, that was stupid. And they dealt him, and obviously he's hurt the rest of the year, so they're paying him to not play at all. Matt Carpenter is another extension that they refused to acknowledge that was terrible. Shouldn't have done it. And so that is what has hindered them in 2021. They won't take on anything more. They were looking for arms that were serviceable, that could possibly get them some innings. and veterans was a plus, and they might have been in talks for a few guys that had a name that maybe had some control past this year, but the price tag was so high, they just weren't going to do it. So they're going to tread water this year, compete as long as they can, and their sights are set on 2022, but I have no idea what their goal is in 2022. If Trevor Story's a part of that, great, but he's a nice player, but he's not one that gets me like overly excited. I mean, what would be, guys? I'm asking Pete and Elliot here. No, that's not even a fair question. I was saying Javier Baez. What if they went after a shortstop like that?
Ooh, the Cardinals?
Did you guys laugh at us?
If you took Javi?
Yeah.
I'd be glad to have you guys take his 200 strikeouts a year.
They've got plenty of those, so I can't imagine that they would. Sam,
no, I mean, yes, it would absolutely sting to see Javi in Cardinals red, but I don't think that that's going to happen. So, Ron, it's interesting that you brought it back to that.
He has too much fun for the Cardinals.
Oh,
they
fuck
wouldn't
you.
bring him in anyways.
Fuck you.
Ron, you've actually brought it back ultimately to where we stand, right? Because you're looking at 2022 and you're saying you don't know what the plan is for next year, right? This year's a treadwater year, and you don't know what the plan is for next year. And this is at least one point where I know that I break with a lot of Cubs fans, at least the ones that I've seen on Twitter, in that I give Jed Hoyer credit. When he saw that it wasn't working, he wasn't going to go halfway. He said, all right, if we're gonna cut bait, then we're going to cut bait. We're not going to keep these guys around and get a second round, a post second round compensatory draft pick. We're going to get something for these guys, and we're going to give ourselves an opportunity to see what is it that we have and what is it that we need. Because going into next year, right now they have about $40 million on the books, and that's it. So you figure any arbitration increases and everything, you're maybe looking at $50 million in commitments. That's a lot of room for them to bring up who they feel comfortable bringing up from the minors and then filling it in with whatever free agents they want to go after on the market. If they want to, Jed Hoyer can be the gorilla on the free agent market, and he can throw money around in order to bring in whoever he wants. If he wants to.
I mean, because if we look at it right now, I mean, who are the Cubs going to field next year in 2022? I mean, two that we know of on our infield is going to be Nico Horner at shortstop and Nick Madrigal at second base. We don't know who's going to be playing third, who's going to be playing first. We know Wilson Contreras is going to be behind the plate. We know in right field it's going to be Hayward, but everything else is in the air.
Hayward.
Well, we think Wilson Contreras is going to be behind the plate.
That's true.
Right.
You never know. He's got 1 year left. And if you're going to deal a catcher, you deal him in the offseason.
Right. It could be done.
I can see Contreras in a Texas uniform for some reason. I get that. I can see him in that uniform.
Is it because he rides horses?
Maybe.
Who's the angriest team in baseball?
Right now, it has to be the Cubs. Right? Only because Wilson Contreras doesn't have those four guys around him anymore, and he's back there alone, and he's pissed. They're going to do a lot of losing, and he's not going to be happy.
I really
Wilson
want
Contreras is the meme of what's his name standing in the pool all by himself, staring at the water.
Yeah,
you know what though? I just thought of it. It'll never happen because it's within the division. But could you imagine Wilson Contreras catching for Amir Garrett?
Oh my God!
Maybe Wilson Contreras shouldn't have called out his teammate. Maybe that would have helped.
Ooh, yeah, I don't know.
I don't think that made a difference. I think the guy was
that's a joke.
I don't think so.
No, yeah, I know.
It's a joke.
I think that was,
Honestly, I think I mean, I'm not mad at it. I mean, the dude wants to win, and
yeah.
He does. I mean, he's worn that on his
like
sleeve for years.
Yeah.
I mean, when they got knocked out of the playoffs, he's in the dugout sobbing, and that's who he is. And when guys aren't kind of acting like he is, he thinks they don't care as much as he does. And we run into people like that in our everyday lives that get crushed by things, and we might not, but they do, and they don't recognize that, hey, you're not responding like me, so you must not care as much.
I look at that almost as like I look at Edmund, talking about not being, prepared for coming into games. I know it's a different scenario. He's talking about.
Oh, I know. Yeah, I know what you're talking about. You're talking about the press conference when he. Yeah.
Yeah. You know what I mean. But
yeah. No.
I mean, I look at it the same way. A guy with fire trying to come out
and I don't think I would predict, guys. I'm not trying to offend Wilson Contreras, but I would think that Tommy Edman is a little more calculated with what he says. So I think what he said was more stinging, actually, than what Contreras said. Yeah, and so it was more of a, hey, I think we could be prepping better. I think our game plan is shit. And Contreras said, hey, got a bunch of guys that have checked out, which was obvious to most people anyway. But yeah, so we live in a strange National League Central division where the Pirates, we have no idea what their game plan is year in, year out. I'm not sure any of us care. It might be up for league contraction. The Brewers are better than what any of us expected, and none of us like it. I don't like it. Because I don't like Brewers fans. Because they don't know how to win, and they're shitheads.
Brewers.
Reds fans, shit. It's basically Kentucky. Let's just call it what it is. Cincinnati's in Kentucky anyway, so
might as well annex it.
And what a shame that two of the charter franchises in the National League are so.
It really is
terrible.
Pittsburgh and Cincinnati have a longer history than almost anybody else, and they're shameful. So we'll just call it that. Sam, Twitter handle. We got to let you go because we've kept you on here for far too long. And I want you to be able to go to bed. And tell your family.
Oh,
best wishes. Happy birthdays all around. I don't know who's had a birthday recently, but.
No, man, it's been great. I appreciate all of y'all. Pete, Elliot, thank you. Ron, thanks for giving me the opportunity to come on here tonight.
Yeah, absolutely.
You can follow me on Twitter at SamSmitty9. Have to find my very, very common name on Facebook, which is Sam Smith. But yeah, guys, it's been a blast.
Well, it's a pleasure having you on, man. We appreciate you following us and interacting with us for so long. It's you're a great Cardinals fan, and I encourage everybody else to follow Sam.
Thanks, bud. Y'all have a good night.
You too. We'll talk to you soon.
Bye.
Yep. Thanks, Sam.
And if you enjoyed, are we done? I think we're done.
I think we've got to be. I'm kind of like I'm fizzling out. Yeah,
I agree.
We're totally done. You heard that beep.
Yep. If you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to subscribe. And if you want to help spread the word, please give us a 5-star review and tell your friends to subscribe. We're available on Facebook, YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and wherever else you listen to podcasts. Also, be sure to check out the other Gateway City Sports Network podcasts, including the Derek King Sports Show, 2 for 3 with Moose Michaels, Yacker Jacks, XFL STL, and In the Cards with A-Train Arlington Lane. Still my favorite host name that I get to say.
It really is. It really is. It
brilliant.
rolls off the tongue. It's so smooth. There's another one coming down the pipeline. It's for MLS soccer because St. Louis does have a team coming next year, MLS St. Louis City. So we'll have another show.
Extra time.
And then they'll go to Vegas the next year.
There you go.
Go fuck yourself.
Send us an email at the show at teamofrivalspodcast.com. You can find Elliot, the birthday boy, on Twitter at
_Elliot.
And you can find number 48 at
what? Hold on.
Yeah, you.
_Ron75.
There you go.
Thank you, Elliot, for the assist. Hey, fellas, it wasn't the best week in Cubs land, but I was definitely looking forward to this conversation, and I could tell you guys were as well. So thanks for jumping on late on a Sunday and accommodating my travel schedule.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, we waited.
I know. I appreciate that. All right, boys. Thursday night?
Thursday, we'll be back. Bigger, faster, stronger. We'll talk to you all then.
$6 million men.
That's right. We love you all so much. Bye-bye, everyone.